Today is January 7th, 2016. We're here with Grant Loy for the Veterans History Project interview. My name is Deb Lawrence. I'm head of the adult department here at Peabody Public Library. Also with us is Anna Ritchie, a clerk in the adult department. Thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome.
All righty. I just need your full name, the branch of service you were in.
Grant Laverne Loy, United States Marine Corps.
Hoorah. Where and when were you born?
I was born on my grandfather's farm in Adams County on March 16th, 1938.
All righty. And do you have brothers and sisters, or?
Well, I had an older brother. I think he was born at the same place, but my younger brother was born in Portland, Indiana, Jay County, at the hospital. And my little sister then was born in, I think, Wolf Lake.
All righty. So what were you doing before you entered the service?
Well, I just graduated high school on May 20th, 1957, and my classmates and myself had tried to find a job somewhere, but things were down at that time. And so one of my classmates said, let's just go join the Marine Corps. And I thought that was a pretty good idea because my uncle was in the Marine Corps in World War II, so why not?
All righty. And so you were a Marine, and
Yes.
you enlisted.
Hmm?
So, and let's see. And did you actually see combat?
No, I did not.
Okay. Where did you serve?
I served in Okinawa.
Mhm.
I was over there 1 year, 1 month, and 29 days.
Got that down.
I just 2 days after I got to Okinawa, they put me on another ship with the 3rd Marine Division and sent us down to the Philippines for a problem or play-acting war. And so I didn't get a rest much, you know. I was always doing something, which was all right.
So, what were some of your duties? What did you?
Well, my MOS in the Marine Corps was a wireman or a switchboard operator, and we laid the telephone wires out to the line companies and ran the switchboard.
Mm-hmm. And so, did you live in barracks when you were there?
When I first got to Okinawa, which I wasn't there very long, we were in a cement typhoon-proof barracks, but like I said, I was only there 2 days. We got down to the Philippines and we lived in tents then until we got back to Okinawa. I think it was about 3 months or so, in June sometime, or maybe first part of July. Anyway, I was a switchboard operator, and I liked that job.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wanted to mess with you.
Ah.
And at that time and period, each private PFC were required to pull 30 days duty, mess duty, every year. So, and I was on mess duty several different times.
And you say because you were naughty, or just because?
I wouldn't say that, but they had me because if they run out of PFCs, which would be the highest rank, then they'd start over again. So they didn't take non-commissioned officers or corporal and above at that time. So, but I had that figured out too, because when I was a youngster up at Bear Lake, my dad had started a garbage route and I inherited it. So we had dogs and so on, and I didn't mind it at all, you know, something to do. And so whenever I went on mess duty, if it was at all possible, I always tried to get into the garbage shack.
Yeah.
They had a fixture there, a U-shaped fixture that was a steam. It had holes drilled in it. You just put the garbage cans over that, and then you just put the steam to it and cleaned it up, and you know, it was easy. And set it out there, and nobody wanted to come in there because it didn't smell too good. Mm-hmm. So if the inspecting officer come in and he had everything in good order, then he would just walk in, look around, say, and sometimes never even say nothing.
Wow.
And that didn't make me mad.
I bet not. So how many hours did you have to, during the day, how many hours were you a switchboard operator, and how many hours did you have other things?
Well, as a rule, it was 8 hours. Technically, since the Marine Corps is a naval service, we have naval watches. In other words, we work 4 hours and then we're off 8 hours. And that kind of worked out that way, not all the time, but sometimes. Mm-hmm. For instance, when we got back to Okinawa then, they had our battalions scattered out because they didn't have enough room in one place to keep the companies. So I was down at Bishikawa, I'm sorry, and there was 2 other guys with me, and we worked 12 hours and then we were off 24 hours. While the other guys worked, you see. So I thought that was kind of a good deal, but I went out on Liberty one time in the daytime, but there ain't nobody out there because they're working, see. So anyway, it was fun, and I'd do it again.
So what did you do in your 12 or 24 hours off?
At that time, I didn't do much anything but sleep, or maybe go out somewhere out of town to do something, you know, or go get laundry, or this normal things that you would do. But I didn't do it at the right time as everybody else, like I've said. But yeah, it was all right.
Did you get to go any place fun on a Liberty or a shore leave or anywhere?
Well, yeah. At that time, we loaded ship one time and loaded with live ammunition and the whole thing, you know. And we took off, and there wasn't really a Vietnam there. There was a Laos, and that was there when Vietnam was, and they had trouble there, and we just kind of floated around, and then we come back. But I went to Japan. I was on Mount Fuji.
Oh.
And all that kind of stuff. But I went to Hong Kong. That was in '58 because the Marines had landed in Lebanon, I think. And we kind of floated around a while, went to Hong Kong, and because we were going to go down to Suez Canal if that operation there called for reinforcements, because we was quicker than sending stuff from the States.
Sure. So how did you get to Okinawa? Were you on a ship? Did you fly?
I'll tell you that story.
Okie doke.
I was at Camp Pendleton in the staging area where everybody that went overseas had to go. And I was on mess duty there too. So anyhow,
I've seen a pattern here.
we left, had breakfast and loaded up everything, you know, and then went down to San Diego and got aboard ship about noon, had lunch, and got located into our, they didn't really have the compartments for you. They had compartments, yeah, sure, but they had racks like 6 high, clear through everywhere, you know.
Oh,
and
wow.
the first thing that I learned is you always want to get on the highest rack.
Really?
Because if you're on the bottom rack and there's 6 racks, then you get stepped on 5 times going up.
Okay.
So, and then if somebody gets sick, then that all goes to the bottom too. So I always tried to get onto as near to the top as I could get. But anyhow, going over, took us 15 days to go from San Diego to Okinawa, straight shot, never stopped nowhere. And we had supper there on the ship and prepared to sail. And I started to not feel too good. And I went back at the fantail, and I could still see the lights of San Diego when I got rid of my supper, my lunch, my breakfast, I think from 2 days before. And it was that way till we got within 2 days of Okinawa.
Oh, wow.
I lost 20 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
And but the thing of it is, once I got to Okinawa and got assigned to H&S Company of the 3rd Marine, 3rd Battalion, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines in H&S Company, which the company I was in, then I got loaded aboard ship, like I said before, in 2 days. So, but I had got my sea legs to a certain extent. I never really got sick, but I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Kind of like having a hangover almost,
Oh,
you know,
dear.
without the headache. But anyway.
So, when you got out of the service, was that conflict over, or was it just that your time was up?
My time was up. Back in the 50s, you were required to have 6 years of obligation to the nation. And you could do that active or be in reserves, inactive. And but I wanted to have some decisions in my own life at that time, so me and my classmate volunteered for the Marine Corps, and we were in for 3 years. And so we got out, we had 3 years in active duty, and then I did get my discharge when that time was up.
But they didn't ever call you back up or
No,
anything?
no.
Okay. When you were in Okinawa and in the Philippines, what'd you do for fun?
Okinawa, we didn't do too much. I mean, we went out on problems and stuff, but see, that was in '58, so basically the war was over 12, 13 years before that. So there's a lot of places over there, the caves and whatever. Some of the guys went in, but I never did because I didn't know what was in there. So I never messed around much. And they had what they called a habu, snake. It's supposed to be half cobra and half rattlesnake. I don't know what it was, but it scared me all the time anyway. So we was out on one problem, and I had a switchboard watch at midnight or whatever after I went to bed, and we had what we called pup tents. Each person carried what they called a shelter half of the pup tent. You button those together, and then each of you would have a tent together. And so we did that, and this guy was from up north here in Indiana. And it started raining and raining and raining and all over there, and I woke up and I could feel something crawling on my shoulder. And Myers was his name. He got up. I woke him up, that's what it was. And I said, hey, I think I got one of those habus in here. He said, well, I think you're crazy. But he got up and got out then, but what had happened, because of the rain and everything, or because you have an A-frame, and the one tent stake had pulled out, and that tent had come down on me and the water was but it didn't make me, I thought it was really,
Well,
because
sure.
that evening before we all bedded down, we had a, what do they call them? Place to go to restrooms, only thing I can think of.
Mm.
And a guy said he walked down there and seen one of them snakes crawl through there. And I said, well, I ain't gonna go there, I know that.
There's a whole jungle, right?
Right. Anyhow, I had another thing I wanted to tell. When you get old, if you don't, when you think of it, you don't do it. You don't
I write
do
a
it.
lot of stuff down.
Oh. Well, I can't think of it.
So,
either.
being in the Pacific, were there any typhoons or anything?
Yes, we had one a typhoon. We loaded up everything and to go away from it, but before it got to Okinawa, it turned.
Ah,
So we did all that work for naught, I guess, but we wasn't mad about it
yeah.
because we got to unload it then too.
So did you have a sweetheart back home?
I had kind of a sweetness for one of my classmates, but she didn't think I was the right kind of person, I guess. But,
Bummer. So you didn't have, did you
No.
just corresponded with your family? or-
I wrote my mom some, quite a bit actually, and I wrote to that girl sometimes, and she kind of picked up the ball and started running with it. And then all of a sudden, about the time I get ready to come home, then she sends me a Dear John letter. So that's the way it is.
Mhm. So, how did you get back home?
It took, now, I know, that's what I was going to tell you before. The first ship I went over on was the A.E. Anderson, AP 111.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's the exact same ship that when the Rangers went into Camp, I think the name of it is, in the Philippines, and because that was a prison camp, and all those prisoners and civilians in that camp come home on that very ship.
Wow.
So, but anyway, coming home then, I was on the USS Okinawa. And it was a fairly new ship, but it took us 18 days, and we were in a storm for 3 days, and everything was buttoned up. Nobody, I didn't even want to, let alone button me up, but because you had to wham, and that ship was just, it wasn't sure. I thought it was going to fall apart, but it never did. But before we got into the storm, it was rough, and I started feeling that seasick come on. So over here is sick bay, and then over here is the head or the restroom, okay? And right out here is a drinking fountain. So they give me 2 Dramamines or seasick pills, whatever, and I walked out there by the scuttlebutt and popped them pills, took a big swallow of water, and down they went. And I stood there for a little bit, and I took 2 more steps right over there to the restroom, and they had not dissolved, because they have on a troop ship, they have a trough there, and they have just slats on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always water running through there, and the ship will do this, and it kind of backs, but it goes out, and I seen those pills go by, I don't know.
Oh.
But it was too late then anyway, so.
So in the 18-day when you weren't sick,
Yeah.
and you weren't in a storm, what did you do on this ship?
Well, they had jobs for you to do, like not coming home, but on one of the ships I was on, me and another one of the wiremen had volunteered for the pot shack. That's where they wash all the pots.
Mm-hmm.
And you would come in at noon, and those dishes or pots would be done, and then you'd stay for supper. You'd do those, and then you come back for breakfast, and you'd do those, and then you would do noons. Then that gives you the whole day.
Mhm.
But then you was off the whole day. The next day, I never did anything like that.
Did you have other kind of duties, or were
Well,
you
they
just
always
free
have
to
guard duty on
play
lunch.
cards, or?
Well, a lot of guys play cards, but they take your money and then they don't give it back.
Oh, that's not fun.
No, that's what I did. I only took one lesson. No, you could do that, or they had guard duties. Like one time I was down in the mess hall. What are you going to steal, and where are you going to go with it? But they had me there. And but the sailors come in, for their cup of coffee before they go on or whatever. And a chief come in, and I said, "How do you?" Just talking. I said, "How do you get rid of seasickness?" He says, "Well, I don't know. I've never had it."
Wow.
And a lot of them didn't. But he says, "What you Marines make a mistake on, as soon as you vomit, then you lay down or go somewhere or whatever, and you don't put nothing back on your stomach. So the first thing you know, you got your dry heaves. But if you drink water," but he said, "I would recommend coffee because the caffeine in there is not really a sedative, but it'll help something, So he said, if you do that, but if you vomit, then go back and do it again, because if you don't, you get the dry heaves."
Oh.
So that's why I drink coffee today, not because of the dry heaves, but because I picked up the habit.
Live and learn.
Right.
When you got home, how were you received by your family and your community?
It was okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a different term. Yeah, no, it was fine. Nothing. I couldn't find a job again, but I wasn't going to listen. Can I tell you about my last haircut?
Sure.
Well, I had made Lance Corporal in May, and then the 1st of June, I started thinking, I'm going to get out June 27th. I ought to get prepared for civilian life. I don't want all these high and tight haircuts. I don't want it long, but I want it to my specifications. And so I decided I ought to start doing that, and I talk civilian and all that, forget about the scuttlebutts and all this kind of stuff. If I had to go to the restroom, I wouldn't say that. I said, I want to go to the restroom. So, but each working day, I want to say in the Marine Corps, but I would assume in all the other services also, you have an inspection to see that everybody's there, and if he's not there, where is he? And the squad leaders have to give a report of their squads. And then usually it's a sergeant, a gunnery sergeant, master sergeant, or whatever that comes down. Sometimes there's an officer, but not always. Anyhow, they check and see that your belt and your zipper lines up straight, and you got your hair combed and you look presentable. You don't have any threads hanging off or anything like that. And anyway, the gunny come down through there, inspecting everything, and he says, comes to me right out there in front of me and says, "Well, you just made corporal last month, didn't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, your hair is getting just a little bit too long, and you need to have that cut because you need to present yourself as a model for the PFCs and privates." And I said, "Yes, Gunny, but I checked this out before I ever started all this." I said, "The book says I can have 3 inches of hair." And he stood there a little bit and he says, "Well, I tore that page out." So, now he used other words than that, but
Yeah,
that's what he definitely meant. He said, "After formation is dismissed, you go get your hair cut and you come back to the office and show me that you got it done." And I said, "Aye, sir." This is all of that. So most guys will remember their first haircut because they had long hair, and they zip you all up, but I remember my last hit.
And,
Not many people
and
say
you wore
that.
a ponytail for quite a while here, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Just get them, huh?
Yeah.
So have you remained in contact with any of your buddies from then?
Well, here in Columbia City, we have the Leatherneck Coffee Club, but we're all from different eras and different companies and so forth. But here, 4, 5, 8 years ago, I don't know, it's been a while, I decided I ought to call up a fella up here at Rensselaer. Drake was his last name, can't think of his first name, but we come home on leave a couple times together, and I thought, oh, I'll call him, you know. And I called and got a lady answered as a recording, and I left my name and phone number and stuff, you know, and she called me then a couple days later. And I asked her about Drake, and she said, well, he passed in 2000.
Oh.
So, and the other guy that was in my company there on Okinawa, he was a radio operator. One of them continuous wave, that's da-da-da and all that.
Yeah.
And I had tried, he was from Indianapolis, and I had tried to call him way before that. And I got a hold of his mom, and she said that he moved to California. So I just kind of let it go, you know, and then when I called Drake, then I tried to call H.T. Luttrell, Jr. And I did get his phone number. I found out that he had moved to New Mexico, I believe. And I got that number, and then I called, and his wife said he passed 3 weeks ago.
Aw.
So.
Well, what about your buddy that you enlisted with?
He moved out to New York State. He's still out there. The last time I seen him was at our 50-year class anniversary, and so he was a painter. I don't know if he was retired then or not. I don't remember, but.
So, I know you're a member of several veterans organizations. The Leatherneck Coffee Club. Yeah. Any others?
Well, I can't join any others except for the AMVETS. I belong to that. I can't join the VFW because I wasn't in wartime, although I was overseas. And I can't join the American Legion because I was in it at the wrong time. From like the late 55 to mid 61 or whatever. During that time period, you can't join that either.
Well, that doesn't seem quite right. You served your country. That doesn't.
Well,
but you've got the Leathernecks, and they're cool.
Right, right.
How did your wartime experiences affect your life throughout?
Well, I never did have a wartime experience.
Well, but your military experience.
Well, I guess once a Marine, you're always a Marine. And I tried to pass that on to my family. I don't know whether it worked or not, but I do a lot of stuff. As you know, a coffee club like Toys for Tots and all that. That's because I was in the Marine Corps, you know. And I don't mind doing it, or I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it.
Right, sure.
But I don't know. I guess everything I do is because, like my last haircut, you know, I still get my hair cut every 2 weeks. Now that I don't have the ponytail.
Now that you don't have your ponytail.
So, you know, it's stuff that they teach you when you're young, And the scripture says if you teach your child young, that's the way you'll be. So I guess that's the way I am.
So what advice would you give to a young person today about joining the military?
Well, personally, you know, when I went in, there was the draft, and I actually dodged the draft, but I joined the Marine Corps. I personally think that we ought to have the draft back to get everybody in, to teach them how to get along with one another, for one thing, and how to take orders. I've seen a guy over there when I was on Okinawa, the guy that I was in the pot shack with, but before that, he decided he was going to do something. I don't even remember what it was, but he wanted me to go along with him. I said, no, I ain't doing that. Well, then he ended up doing a 6x6, just to dug a big pile of dirt out, and then he had to put it back in.
Oh.
Good exercise, right?
Yeah,
but I didn't want none of it.
So that was a punishment. It was
Right,
the 6x6. You just had to dig a hole and build
Yeah.
it back in.
Yeah. And then I don't think he ever done it after that, but he was from Pittsburgh. But anyhow.
Well, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss?
Of course, you know, we got the Leatherneck book, and I've got 5 stories in there, but I want to tell you another one. When I was down at Camp Lejune, because I almost got to go on our med cruise at one time under, I don't want circumstances, I guess. But so when I was there at Camp Lejune, the fall of 1959, they come around and said, we'd like volunteers for the med cruise. And I got to thinking, you know, I just got 8 months left. That's 6 months tour. And if I do that, I'll just come back and have 2 months to do, and then I'll be out. I'll be home. So I went over and signed up, and gunnery sergeant said, go over there to sick bay and get your shots, which didn't take much because I'd just come back from overseas and they give you a passel to begin with. So I had 2 or 3 shots, and then that was it. Well, I was just walking out to sick bay there, rolling my sleeves down, and he says, Loy, you can't go. I said, what do you mean I can't go? Well, division says you have to have a year, and you only got 8 months. I said, I know that. And he says, but you can extend 4 months for to make the year, and then you can go. I said, well, you know what you can do with that information, don't you? And so I said, I ain't doing that. I signed a contract for 3 years, and that's all I'm going to do. He says, well, then you can't go. That suits me. But had I went, you see, I met Linda in the fall of 1960, because I got out in June. I don't remember when it was, but it was down here at the skating rink. But had I taken that extra 4 months,
You wouldn't
Would
have
I?
your lovely wife.
well, I don't know if I would or not, but I know I've got her now.
There you go. There you go. Well, we appreciate your time and being here with us, and hoorah.
Ooh, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Grant.